Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Facebook Live on this Thursday, January 25th, almost the end of the month. We're going to talk about fog, a lot of fog in just a moment. But of course, we always like to start by reminding you we're live on Facebook every weekday morning. You can find us throughout the day on your feed. It stays there. We make it into a podcast. You can find it at inform.com/podcast. Look for the Inform Minute or anywhere you find your podcasts. Of course, we're on all of the social media platforms in addition to Facebook and live on air every weekday morning from 5 to 7. Today, the big story, fog, dense fog advisory. Just soupy and icy.
Yeah,
so you
can,
we could probably just leave and you just talk for the next
Take it over, Lydia.
Take it over, yeah.
It's because fog is taking over.
Yeah.
It's so foggy out there. Visibility in Fargo's at about 7 miles right now, which isn't terrible, but it was worse overnight. And so all of that water vapor and all of that moisture froze onto our roads. I slid through my roundabout this morning, took a curve and kind of kept going in the direction my steering wheel was not. And I never slide through that curve. That's the first time I've ever slid through that curve, and I've lived in my house almost 5 years. Like, it's icy.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Too.
Yeah, it's sneaky.
Because it kind of just looked wet.
Right, yeah. And I'm like, oh, the temps at 31, which I know is cold enough. But so yes, anyways, there are a lot of slippery spots. I'd expect roundabouts, bridges, intersections, on and off ramps to be notoriously slick this morning. Fog is not going anywhere. We have no wind. We looked at our Wafton Tower cam on the show this morning and the flag was just stagnant. It was not moving. Not even like a little wiggle to it. It was just flat. So that being said, that calm air is allowing this fog to settle in. I don't have wind in the forecast until about tomorrow afternoon, which means I'm also going to keep fog in the forecast until about tomorrow afternoon. And then I think it starts to shake up and thin out a little bit. We should be fog free by the time we head into Saturday. So just kind of get used to these slippery spots, reductions in visibility, kind of the gray, murky, damp look and feel out there. Temperature's wiggling a couple of degrees because the same story goes, this air is just trapped, and so our temp is not moving. It's about 31 in Fargo right now. We're forecasting 33 this afternoon. So we're just dancing right around the freezing point. We'll do that again tomorrow. Wind picks up a little bit tomorrow afternoon. Should get a little more sunshine by Saturday. Not perfectly sunny, but at least breaks in the grayness by the time we get to Saturday. I have mid-30s through the weekend, maybe a few sprinkles on Sunday. Not a big moisture maker, not worried about it. 40s by Tuesday.
Nice.
So lots of 40s there on out. Our assistant news director, Drew, actually was just asking me, will it be foggy next week too with the warmer air? My hunch is no, because what happened with this initial push of air, remember how cold it was last week, the week before, we were sub-zero for a stretch. Okay, so our ground got really cold. Had this initial push of warmer air, those two things almost fight each other. It's kind of like reverse-like effect snow, where the ground is cold and warm air moves in, and it created this advection fog. Now our ground is warming up. So when we get next week's push of warm air, it's coming on top of already fairly warm ground. So I don't think it'll be as foggy. Plus, there's not as much snowpack after all of the melting now, so not as much water vapor in the air.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, with
Well, it makes sense. I want to give you a
up.
little credit for this. I know why he's asking for next week,
Yeah.
because you've been off a couple of days, but last week you forecast this.
I did, yeah.
So it was like, you were forecasting this very early.
Thank
I
you.
know.
Yeah.
We,
Thank
should,
you.
we have to give
Thank
you
you.
credit because I kind of at the time was like, wow, that's
She's
pretty
crazy.
bold. Like, she is for real, like that many days out. You're like,
Yes.
this is going to happen.
It was over a week ago. I stood at the green screen and I said, next week is going to be foggy. And it's one of those things where your little Apple iPhone weather app that I love to hate on, the one that just comes with your phone, that thing last week wasn't telling you about fog. No way. Not at all. But our storm tracker team was like, hey, heads up, next week is going to be foggy. I just didn't want anyone going into the warm up this week to think it was going to be sunny and beautiful and 30s and comfortable, because I knew it was going to be murky and gray and foggy. Here we are. So I don't think next week will be as foggy. I'm a little more confident in sunshine for next week, just with a bigger warm up and less snow on the ground. So that's where I'm sitting right now, subject to change.
which is true. Which is
a little asterisk
but
on that.
also it's just crazy weather. I mean, 40s.
Yeah.
End
Into
of
February.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild. Oh, man.
Enjoy it. Yeah, watch out for the fog, though.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And before we jump into the news headlines, just want to remind you, of course, if you want to track the fog, because it's moving, and those dense fog advisories, and the road conditions, because we were talking about that a lot on First News, and really deteriorated from, I think they were just being updated as people woke up and checked out the roads, but
Sure.
a lot of icy conditions and
Yeah.
wet, kind of frosty conditions on the road. So just be aware of that. And if you're about to head out, just use that Storm Tracker weather app to get a heads up
Yeah,
before you go.
because like we said, it's kind of deceiving. You look out,
Yeah.
you're like, whatever. But then you get on the road, a little slippery, and, never can be too careful. So keep that in mind.
Okay, well, breaking news today. We are learning about several more interactions between the man responsible for the July 14th shooting in Fargo and police. The Forum's April Baumgarten was able to gain access to new incident reports that we didn't have access to before that mentioned Mohammed Barakat. Of course, background, Barakat was the one who killed a Fargo police officer, injured 2 others, and a bystander in that Fargo shooting that happened last summer. Now, we're going through these new reports obtained by the Forum, and it shows officers responded to Barakat's home about a year before the shooting on a suicidal person report. That same report said Barakat had a gun and had been making statements about dying, but never made any attempts to end his life. A lot of new details, new documents. Interesting stuff, including, I'd mentioned this before, I read all the way through it. It talked a little bit about what Barakat said he did in Syria, like for his career before he came here. So I feel like we're learning more about him. Still so many unanswered questions.
Just a big shroud of mystery around who this guy was.
Absolutely.
And his past. So, anytime we get a few more nuggets about who he was and why he maybe did what he did, it's one of those things you just kind of want to dive into. So.
Inforum.com, check it out today.
All right, Minnesota State Community and Technical College is making history when it comes to cannabis education. It says it's going to be the first 2-year college in the state to offer programs preparing students for the cannabis industry. 3 new cannabis programs will be offered to the students, and they're all going to be online. Students can get certificates in cannabis cultivation, retail, extraction, and product development.
We have an update on a crash that we first told you about on First News. We now know the names of the 2 people facing charges in a rollover crash that happened on I-94 near Tower City. 23-year-old Kelly Hansen and 19-year-old Carson Rowland are both from Jamestown. They were inside the car when it went off the road and rolled yesterday morning. They're both facing charges, including DUI and possession of drug paraphernalia.
Right now, a 24-year tradition is underway, and you can be part of it, of course. Sanford Health is raising money for its children's hospital through the Cares for Kids Radiothon. I'm sure you're going to hear it all over the radio stations today throughout the day. So if you hear it, that's what it is. It goes until 6 o'clock tonight. They're going to be giving those testimonials of children and families who have been impacted and affected by cancer.
Yeah,
and
so if you're at a stoplight and you see someone crying behind the wheels, probably because they're listening to these stories.
Exactly.
They're so moving.
They really are.
Emotional.
Of course, all the money raised through the event goes towards the programs at the Children's Hospital. So if you want to donate, you can call in during those radio events going on, or you can simply go online to sanfordhealthfoundation.org.
Hot Mike with Dom Izzo coming up 9 to 11 on WDAY Extra. The biggest story, I think, in local sports right now. Tyler Roll leaving the only school he's ever known for a new job at Tennessee State. The former Bison player and coach, West Fargo native. He's going to be on the show with Dom today to discuss his new job and why he's leaving. I think I read something on inform.com. He put on social media that it just was time to go. So there's got to be more to it. We're going to ask him all of those questions. Plus a huge weekend for the high school hockey in Minnesota. The Moorhead head coach will be on the show as well as the Spuds are heading outside. Hot Mike is on from 9 to 11 on WDAY Extra.
Hopefully it's not too warm. The ice stays melted or stays icy. So we'll see how that goes.
Hopefully the ice stays icy. Right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Ice stays frozen,
Okay.
I should say. There we go. All right, don't forget, for 99 cents a month for your first 3 months, you can get an all-access pass to inform.com. Just go to inform.com/subscribe to get that deal. You can get access to lots of great articles, including the Mohammed Barakat article as well.
Our next newscast coming up at 11 this morning, an hour-long newscast, and we have you covered this afternoon, 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.